All right. Welcome, everybody, to Sell Yeah, the 8-Fig Run segment podcast, where we feature our valued partners, talk a little bit more about what they're doing in the e-commerce space, how they're bringing value to it to make it a better ecosystem for us all. I'm really excited for this episode. This is our third ever episode that we are doing for the Sell Yeah podcast. It's surely going to be an interesting one. I have with me a very special guest, Matt Botha of Elevate Brands, a friend of mine, a loyal partner of 8-Figs. Matt, it's really great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sam. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, of course. Always fun to do it in person. For the last few, we've been doing it virtually, kind of over Zoom, which, we were both saying doesn't really quite beat the in-person thing. So glad you're in Austin, able to get this figured out. I'm really excited for today's episode. It's going to be great. Matt, for those who don't know, lives in Austin, grew up in South Africa, I believe, has a very diverse background when it comes to consulting, entrepreneurship. He's now currently the Associate Director of M&A, Mergers and Acquisitions at Elevate Brands, where they invest in brands, they launch brands of their own, all on Amazon to help them grow. Really interesting model. I'm excited to hear a little bit more about it. Outside of that, you do some pretty wild stuff on your own time, right? Do some windsurfing, maybe on the lake, and some lots of traveling and things like that. So I'm sure we'll dig into it, but it's going to be a good episode. So thanks so much for tuning in. And Matt, thanks again for coming. I appreciate it. I think, let's kick it off with a little bit more about your background. Why don't we dig into your background, kind of what led you down this path to Elevate Brands, what got you excited about e-commerce? I'm sure the audience and I would love to hear a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so thanks for having me, Sam. I'm looking forward to this. So I started off my career in transaction advisory, consulting for private equity firms. So I'd be performing financial due diligence before they go make an acquisition, or we work for the sellers and try to help them get their business ready for an exit. So I did that for about 2 to 3 years, and I was super excited. And you meet all these founders, you see how they started their business, you learn their story, but I was always consulting. I was always sitting on the sideline, and, I wanted to get more skin in the game and actually see what happens after the acquisition's closed. So I gained a really good skill set, data. You meet someone, you've got about 2 weeks to learn their story, understand their business, and present it to a potential buyer to help them understand a complex business in a short amount of time.
Sure.
So it's a great skill set, but Elevate reached out to me on LinkedIn when they just started. This was back in around just November 2020. And they just said that's when the aggregate e-commerce model really started booming. Mm-hmm. So Thrasio reached $1 billion valuation. Perch just reached it. So there was a lot of excitement. Elevate was about to close a round, and they said they want to roll up these e-commerce brands, and I just loved the opportunity. I thought it was an exciting business model, so much potential. The team, they already had built a big retail arbitrage business. They already done a couple acquisitions, so I thought it's the right combination of people and the right time. So jumped on board 3 years ago.
That's awesome. That's really cool to hear. I like hearing about a background where, you kind of get your feet wet with valuations and kind of understand those businesses a little bit more. And then an opportunity comes along like it did with Elevate, where you can really dig in and have an impact, which I think is pretty awesome. So you oversee a lot of the M&As, right? You're in the weeds on the valuations and the deals that come to the table. What are you looking for, in like your investment profile? Like, say a deal comes along and maybe it's an e-commerce brand. It's only Amazon, right? That Elevate does only
Amazon. At the moment, we only buy Amazon businesses.
Gotcha. So for those Amazon brands that might be looking for an exit, what's your guys' sweet spot? What are you looking for when you're making an investment?
Yeah. So the first thing is, we just try to see the founder. Is it someone that we can build a relationship with? Do we like the business they built, the niche, and the trends that they are in? Now we do have the hindsight of data. We bought 31 brands. We have merged with Seller X now.
Nice.
So together we've got over $400 million of revenue. Wow. And what we've seen through that, we can see which deals have worked better and which haven't. I mean, the deals that have worked better are typically the ones that are bigger, where the seller's got a team in place. And that's where we find we can add a lot more value.
Gotcha.
So our biggest brand in the portfolio at the moment is doing over $100 million revenue.
$100 million in revenue is the biggest in the portfolio. That's awesome.
Yeah. So the brands we're looking for at the moment is typically between that $10 million range to, well over $100 million. And we've raised a lot of capital we are looking to do more big acquisitions and more acquisitions where we see a lot of synergy where we can add value.
Totally. That's interesting. So you're really looking at the team. Like that's a big part of it, right? How they're structured, how they're organized, revenue, obviously from like a return perspective, that's huge. But you really want to get to know the team a little bit and see kind of how they're run, right?
Yeah, exactly. We find, at that size, it's a lot harder to just pick it up and transfer it completely. Whereas if they've got the right people in the right place, it makes a much smoother transition. Okay. So they've got a team, they've got systems, then we can really see what can we do to work around what they've got in place and what value can we add. We do acquisitions where we buy the sellers out 100%.
Okay.
And they leave their whole team. But if they do have something in place, that's when we really find good opportunity between both of us.
Gotcha. So sometimes they retain their ownership and some, I guess, autonomy over the business, but other times you're taking over completely.
So typically we buy 100% of the assets. I mean, the way our debt's structured in the covenants, we need to own the asset. There are 2 cases where we have done joint ventures. Okay. Where we have bought a portion of the business. So it's a lot harder to structure it like that. So we do try to avoid it, but what we would do is we could buy 100% of the company and we offer really strong earnouts. I mean, we have one seller we partnered with and, he's grown the business almost triple since we bought it in 2020 or 2021. And that's been a great relationship. I mean, we've just taken the headaches off of his plate. We saw what are the biggest challenges that he faces every day. Mm-hmm. We took that off his plate. I mean, the first 2 weeks he went on holiday, went out kite surfing, traveling. And,
nice.
After that he got bored and then he got back into the business and he saw where can he add more value.
Yeah.
And he just got his hands dirty in product development, launched a lot of SKUs. And the way his earnout was structured, he got, a massive payday from it. So it's been a great relationship.
Nothing wrong with a massive payday. Good for him. You said something interesting earlier about challenges, like what are his biggest challenges that he faced on a day-to-day basis. You guys kind of took over to help solve those. I guess, like, generally speaking, what are some of the biggest challenges you see from most Amazon brands, And I guess it's going to depend on kind of how early on they are in their journey, how much revenue they're doing. But are there common themes that you see, like this is consistently a challenge? And what do you guys kind of do to help them overcome it?
Yes, I mean, I've had the benefit of meeting a lot of sellers. I mean, I've personally spoken to over 300 Amazon sellers over the last 3 years. And from what I've seen, it takes a different skill set to build $1 million business, different to build $10 million, $30 million, $100 million, etc. business. It's like at each point, the sellers need to reinvent themselves. What got you to $1 million? You keep doing that, you're going to stay at that $1 million mark. If you want to get from $1 million to 10 million, you need to do something different. So what happens? I mean, typically the sellers start working on a new project, a new challenge, and then they get the cadence running, they get up to the peak, and then they maximize and they need to try and reinvent themselves. So one of the biggest challenges from scaling up, the sellers work, in their business and not on their business. They've got their hands dirty. They do a lot of the day-to-day operations and it just bogs down their time. They don't get that time to think of the bigger picture. And as soon as they start hiring themselves out, putting the right key people in the right places, once that happens, then it frees them up. So they get to focus on, okay, what do we do now to get from 1 to 10 million? Gotcha. Once they get to 10 million, it's the same thing. New challenges come up. They end up focusing too much of their time on the same things. And they got to keep reinventing and finding how do they take themselves out of the weeds and keep thinking on that bigger picture.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's something that, by virtue of doing these interviews and, like you said, meeting sellers across the board at various events, like we both connected at Prosper and then SellerCon, going to those, like a central theme is, I'm building my business. I understand the long-term picture. I want to grow my revenue and maybe move towards an exit someday, right? That's a big goal of a lot of sellers that I meet. But what bogs them down is getting too tied up in the minutia, right? The weeds that kind of come along and they're just, stain your hair until you just can't take it. So the fact that, there's solutions and help out there that can take away those challenges and help you overcome the small stuff to focus on the bigger stuff is really impactful. So that's really cool to hear. I think, going back to my point earlier, another question I had for you, that you're in the M&A space, right? You do really well with Elevate. I want to hear from you, like, say there's a seller, maybe they're just starting out, right? They're doing 100, 200K in revenue per year, something like that. Say their ultimate goal, down the line, 5 years, 10 years, something like that, is to exit their business. They want to sell their business. They want to cash out, maybe start something new, right? Do you have like maybe 1 to 2 tips you would give someone like that to say, this is something you could do today or in a year that will best position you for an exit 5 to 10 years from now, something like that?
Yes, I think the first thing, whenever we meet a successful seller, they always have a network of 3 to 4 other sellers around their level, around it. Being a solo entrepreneur isn't easy. If you don't know anyone else in the ecosystem, if you don't know anyone else in Amazon, you're only learning from your mistakes. You're going to go a lot slower. So I'd say the first thing is get yourself plugged into a community, meet other sellers, talk to other people who are at a similar level to you, because quickly you'll learn from each other.
Yeah.
So firstly, finding those 3 to 4 key people. There's a lot of online e-commerce events. There's a lot of in-person events like we met at. Just go start putting yourself out there in the community, meet other people, ask questions, and collaborate.
Yeah, that's a good point. Whenever we go to these events, and for anyone listening who may just be starting out, has the goal of exiting their business down the line, going to those events is like of the utmost importance. Not only are you going to meet vendors and partners like that we have going on, you're going to meet so many other sellers that have either been in your shoes, are not in your shoes yet, or have exited your shoes a long, long time ago and started multiple businesses and have sold various different products, a number of SKUs, right? There's such a wide array online and at these in-person events of people who have been there before that can be helpful to you, that I would highly recommend at least checking out maybe one a year. Otherwise, you can check out, communities like AMZ Insiders and MBS. Shout out to those guys. They do a wonderful job of connecting peers together to help overcome challenges. So that's a really, really good point. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah. But also at the same time, you got to find the balance. It doesn't help you go to events every month and you don't get time to actually execute. So if you go to the event, you learn. Also just moving quickly. If you see something that you can change in your business, implement it. Don't wait around for a couple months. It's like the people that are proactive and take action, and just constantly have that willingness to learn. Even if you've grown, you're probably doing some things really well, but there's always something that someone else is doing that you could implement. So just always constantly relearning, seeing what else is out there, keeping up to date with the latest content.
Totally. How do you feel about something that just occurred to me? Like, I know you guys are looking at businesses that, 100 million revenue, a year, something, along those lines, right? They're built, they're established, they have a good team. How do you feel about, businesses, maybe they're just starting out, maybe they're a couple of years along the line, that might want to consider multiple SKUs, like launching more products on Amazon while focusing on other things, right? How do you feel about that? You think it's better to focus on one product starting out, or is it better to diversify with maybe 5 to 10 products or something like that and see how it goes? What would your thoughts be on that?
There's no one right answer. Some people have one SKU businesses doing over $10 million revenue.
Yeah.
Some people have 10,000 SKU businesses doing the same. So there's no one answer for everyone. There's different ways to do it, and there's different complexities, different problems, and different challenges with each of it. If you play devil's advocate, one person say if you just have one SKU, you have so much risk if that one listing gets shut down. Whereas if you have 10,000, the chance of all of them getting shut down are lower.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it's harder to manage 10,000 listings versus one. So there's no one right answer. But I think the main thing is focus on the basics and focus on the complexity. You want to be in a position where you don't overwhelm yourself. If you go and try to take on more than you can chew, if you go and try to launch 10 listings and you drop the ball on all of them, you're in a worse position. So the basics is first, don't bite off more than you can chew. If you can launch 10 SKUs and you can manage them, go for it. Maybe try to test the water for the 10, see which 3 are getting the most traction, double down on those, pick it up. If you can build the systems and the capabilities to go and launch 100 SKUs and effectively manage all of them, then don't be afraid to, from the perspective that, everyone else says, hey, just do a 1 SKU business. If it's working for you, you can build the systems and you're not getting overwhelmed by it. By all means, keep up with it. But
it's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah, this might be a good time to shamelessly plug 8Fig. Hey, if you have trouble with managing your inventory and need a little bit of help managing the cash flow, feel free to give us a shout. But no, Matt, that's all really insightful. I think the big themes here for those starting out and maybe who want to take the next step towards another level would be don't bite off more than you can chew. Get involved in the community and really just understand your vision and your ultimate goals and try to stay away from the minutia as possible, or lean on others who can help you with the minutia. There's a lot of good vendors out there who might be helpful in helping you overcome challenges. I know we've already had a few on this podcast and have met a ton. So feel free to reach back out to them if you're struggling with other things inside your business. So that's great. Really insightful, Matt. I really like how this is going. I think another question I wanted to ask you was about like emerging trends in Amazon or in e-commerce space at large. What do you see like as an emerging theme consistently that you think is going to change the landscape forever, change it slightly? What are a few emerging trends that you want everyone listening or your sellers to pay close attention to in the years to come?
Yeah, I think AI is the biggest one. Over the last 6 to 9 months, that's had a huge impact. And at the moment, there's a lot of implementable ways you can do it. From building listings, doing keyword research, doing product development, getting images.
Yeah,
there's a lot of ways that it allows you to move a lot quicker. But at the same time, that creates a lot more competition because everyone can get on faster. A lot more people are going to be dumping. But I think a much bigger trend is something that Bill Gates was talking about in the past week where, the whole shopping landscape is going to be redone. As people are ordering products through Alexa, it's like, how does that end up changing the buying marketplace?
Yeah.
At the moment, everyone's looking at Amazon. You searching for keywords, you showing designs. When people start ordering products through an AI assistant, the whole shopping marketplace is sort of going to be, thrown on its head.
Absolutely transformed. I've always thought and you can kind of do this to a certain degree with Alexa in your house now. Mm-hmm. Be like, hey, I need more of those paper towels, get somebody on it and it can be delivered within hours, Maybe someday there will be a device that's smart enough where Alexa's integrated with the refrigerator and it just knows that you're out of milk and you'll get it delivered in like an hour. I've always thought about that and let my imagination run, but
let me know if you start that business.
Yeah. I'll let you know, man. Maybe Elevate can acquire it down the line. We'll see. I've thought about that and it really doesn't seem like it's that far away in the future, with the introduction of ChatGPT and language models that are generative like that. It seems like the possibilities are endless. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it's scary because at the moment, I think Amazon's really given access to the third-party marketplace. There's over 62,000 sellers on Amazon doing over $1 million per year in revenue.
That's crazy. 62,000 sellers. That's massive. Doing over $1 million in revenue per year.
Yeah, and that means that they build sizable businesses. And the reason they can do that is they see how the algorithm works and they find ways to take advantage over the bigger brands. They can run a listing better than, a massive, old school brand can because they got their, they're in the weeds on Amazon.
Yeah.
When people start shopping through something like Alexa, do they lose that advantage? It'll be interesting to see how that changes.
It's a good point. And it brings up another thing that's worth mentioning. There's something to be said about really solid product optimization, right? Mm-hmm. Your listing needs to be rock solid. You can spend as much money as possible on PPC. If you don't have a solid listing, you're not going to generate very much organic sales, right? So that's another really good point that, I'm glad we brought up here. To kind of wrap it up here, I'd like to hear a little bit more about what you do outside of work, because it sounds like you got a lot going on and it's pretty interesting, right? You're a windsurfer, you travel a ton, you grew up in South Africa. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you like to do outside of work?
Yes, I think since I joined Elevate, I was fortunate enough where I could work remotely. We meet in sellers, we work in online. It was in the middle of COVID. The whole team was all over the place. So travel was a lot cheaper during COVID because no one else was doing it. Flights were almost free. Airbnb cost, a fraction of what the rent was. So as soon as COVID hit, I just, took up and started bouncing around. And that was super exciting. The sellers are based all over. And what I've seen in the e-commerce community, back when I was in consulting, everyone's playing golf. They're doing more low-risk sports. Here in e-commerce, entrepreneurs are risk takers. No one wants to go play golf on the weekend. Well, they're not, no one. people are more excited to go to adrenaline junkie sports. I mean, doing kite surfing, skydiving,
Yeah.
bungee jumping. So, while I was traveling there, I just thought, hey, let me get into it and just love doing getting out there when I can. I mean, unfortunately, you've got to wait until the wind's good. I mean, right now, the wind's looking good this weekend. So,
yeah, totally.
Saturday. So,
I feel like the wind is always good here in Central Texas, right? There's just so many planes that just carry them on through. That's cool. That's cool, man. That's awesome. And again, this has been such a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks for coming down and sharing some insightful thoughts with the audience. I know it's going to be appreciated. If somebody wanted to get in touch with you and maybe in touch with Elevate, maybe they're running a really solid business and they want to talk about an exit or get some advice, what would be a good way to get in touch with you?
So always happy to have a discussion. I mean, we've got quite a selective buy box. We can't buy every business, but always happy to, meet with sellers. And maybe if it's not a right fit for us, we're happy to introduce them to someone that might be a good fit for. So you can either email me on matt@elevatebrands.com or matthew.botha@sellerx.com or on LinkedIn. It's just Matthew Botha.
Perfect. The great Matthew Botha. You heard it here first.
So yeah.